And then Eddie Kingston's out for our face-to-face with Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho. And Jericho comes out to Judas, and Kingston has no time for the crowd singing along with this song. He's asking Jericho, why do we have security in the ring? And Jericho says he doesn't want to fight. He calls him a street thug. And Kingston he explains, I'm not a sports entertainer, and this isn't a sports entertainment company. Can we maybe get like Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander out here to wrestle? And says, if you want a sports entertainment company, go down the block. And that got a big reaction, as this was their AEW's first show in Connecticut. And Jericho is booed when he mentions Stamford. And he's going to tell Eddie Kingston a story. He is going to do some sports entertaining, but it'll actually be entertaining. And he says that when Eddie Kingston came to AEW, everyone in the locker room was so excited that he was here, except for him. He didn't know who Eddie Kingston was. He thought maybe they meant Eddie Edwards was coming. And then he saw Eddie Kingston and realized the reason I didn't know who you were is because you look like a jobber. Then I saw your match against what's his name? You familiar with what's his name, Way?
Yeah, I believe I know what's his name. I mean, I didn't take this as any sort of like, company direction, and just maybe more so Jericho kind of making.
I'm sure this was Jericho just not naming he's not here. We're not doing anything with him. So why drop his name?
And I think kind of smart, because mentioning Cody would, I think, possibly lead to a chance or something that might derail the segment.
There was that chance. Like I don't think it would have happened. I think this was like a compelling enough segment, but you drop Cody's name, and yeah, I guess there's that possibility.
Takes focus away, but I mean this did anyway.
This could have also led to a Cody chant if the fans heard it, but nonetheless there wasn't. It wasn't like anything. It was just what it was. And then after the match, a very hard fought match with what's his name prevailing, he heard Eddie Kingston's promo and realized this guy is really good. And he told Eddie, one day you're going to be a huge babyface. And I was right. Kingston was so great reacting to Jericho. He's in the corner just taking this.
So good.
What's a babyface? Dude, Eddie Kingston was just tremendous here with his one-liners. Like, the guy is just so quick on his feet. And Jericho continues and says how Kingston got over his physical and mental issues and signed a contract at the age of 38. And everyone was happy except me, because I don't give two shits about your sob story. I know that you're jealous of me because it took you until you were 38 to make it big. I was in the big time at the age of 22, and he lists off all of the things he had done by the time he was 38 years old. He says, Kingston, you can't achieve what I have or be at my level. Kingston says, the reason you headlined in all these places, Chris, is because I wasn't there. I don't lie. I don't act like a carny. I do things my way, and I'm going to be me until I die. Do you want to fight at Revolution? Jericho's response, maybe the greatest response to any challenge in the history of pro wrestling, was not a yes or no to this fight at Revolution. He said, Eddie, have you ever heard of the word achievemophobia? Eddie says, no, I haven't. I've got a GED. Dude, this place laughed. This was like the most genuine laughter you've ever heard from a wrestling crowd reacting to this. As Chris explains that achievemophobia, which I will profess I had never heard of and literally looked this up, is being terrified to make it to the top because you would fall instantly and your destiny is one of failure. I've read about your family's history, how your first hero was your uncle, and he was a failure. You believed in your own father. He turned out to be a failure. And deep down, you know you're a failure. Eddie, you can't win the big one. And in this company, I'm the big one. Not Moxley, not Danielson, not Punk, not even the AEW champion. I am. And he accepts his challenge for Revolution. And if I lose to you, Eddie, I will truly respect you. And Kingston says, listen, Chris, at Revolution, I don't want the Chris Jericho that fell into a mimosa or fell off the cage at Blood and Guts. I want the one that won the AEW title, that gained the respect of my hero Tenryu in war, that bled in Tennessee, that turned WCW upside down, and the one that your friend Paul Levesque hated. Because if not, If you don't bring that, Chris Jericho, I'm going to eat you alive. And Jericho ends the promo saying, I have the same opinion as I know you do. You're a loser, Eddie, and you're never going to win the big one.
Magnificent segment. Magnificent. The MJF promo was great. And between that and this, I mean, you had really a stellar Dynamite full of great speaking. And I think it's totally dependent on maybe which one you relate more to when you want to say which one was the better. But they were both stellar. I thought this was absolutely great. It felt incredibly organic and raw, very loose, not necessarily, hey, you talk, I talk, you know. It felt like a conversation. Sometimes they were stepping over each other. You had a lot of ad-libbing, I think, from Eddie Kingston mainly, but like it felt real. It felt like it was two masters who in the back just decided to go, let's call it in the ring. Except, you know, what they're calling is not a match, but a talking segment. It felt like there was so much reality in some of these words. Everything they said was believable. You know, Jericho, I think, hitting on the idea of jealousy being the reason why Eddie Kingston hates him so much, I think is wonderful because it's believable. So it seems like they are, somewhat getting away from the Santana Ortiz angle of like, you know, like for this whole thing started because it was like Eddie Kingston claiming that, oh, okay, Santana and Ortiz, you've been holding my boys down, basically, Jericho. But they're getting away from that and getting a bit deeper. Jericho is asking, well, why do you have such a problem with something that's none of your business? It's because you're jealous of me. And then Jericho gets into the Players Tribune article as a source of heat. And, you know, anyone who's read the article knows, I mean, what an accomplishment it really was for somebody like Eddie Kingston to be so publicly vulnerable with some of those sensitive topics. And for Jericho to use that, to turn it on him in this promo, immediately this crowd was, you know, like this feud really was made. I felt, much like, you know, with MJF getting into some of that subject matter, I felt that there was a chance when Jericho brought this up that it could have been cringy, could have been distasteful if it was simply brought up for heat. But I thought Jericho was able to frame it and handle it in a way that felt like it was almost like he was presenting a challenge for Eddie Kingston to overcome, rather than just, you know, strictly bring something up to put him down with. And I feel like this is, you know, this hero's journey that now we're all set on. Can Eddie Kingston overcome the challenges that he set up for himself, you know, that are very real for him? Eddie Kingston, you know, the article is titled, I got no fucking business being here. And Jericho is really the perfect opponent for him because Jericho's whole career has been the antithesis of that. Jericho is somebody who I think some would say is overconfident, who has gotten to his position because he calls himself the king of the world. You know, he thinks le champion. It's like it's bravado that is almost like more than, I mean, the guy absolutely deserves it, of course, but almost like he even takes it a step further. So it especially works because you saw Kingston sell like every single one of these lines as Jericho brings up each family member. You know, you saw within Eddie Kingston how much he wanted to beat the shit out of this guy. So man, I thought it was like a segment that I think not just elevated, of course, Eddie Kingston, but elevated Chris Jericho back into the conversation. You know, him bringing up him actually being the man ahead of Mox and Bryan and Punk. And yeah, he's really kind of fallen by the wayside since those guys have ascended. But a promo like this, it's going to make Eddie Kingston perform at his best, but it's also going to force Jericho to perform at his best because shit like GFY is not going to cut it. You know, when you're talking about an Eddie Kingston feud that demands real, and it's going to, I think, have to force Jericho to be, you know, that much more authentic, that much more gritty, and more so than, you know, many of his opponents have demanded.
Yeah, I thought that this was like, you know, it put just Jericho. I think the emotion you wanted is like by the end of this, you just wanted to see Eddie Kingston kick this guy's ass, and I think that's like such a strong dynamic to have coming out. Like that is the point of like a segment that you want to pay to see this match. You want to see this guy get his comeuppance
and overcome his own inner issues.
Yeah, and you also, I think, like that last face-to-face with Kingston and Punk was just such a strong segment. And I think you did want to differentiate this one. And it was like they did kind of, you know, piggyback off like Eddie Kingston's look, for instance. But I think this one, it really zoned in on that Players Tribune article and going into different areas. I would have, like, since you did have the security there, I think for that reason, I think I would have wanted like just a bit more of a vision. Like when Jericho is dropping like lines about his uncle and his father, it's like you're expecting Eddie Kingston to punch this guy in the face and not have any kind of restraint that I think you would have wanted, like the security to be that literal barrier, that it makes Jericho even more despicable that you have all the confidence to say something like that when you have this protection, and the pay-per-view, you will not.
Yeah. I mean, visually, I think it could have added to it. For me, though, like, I don't know if you could have done much to make this even better. Like, to me, it did hit that note where, like, I do want to see this guy beat the shit out of the other person, just strictly through their talking. So, but yeah, I definitely think there were some, you could have improved it in a number of ways, but I thought the note that they did hit was really high.